Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and honored that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Traci Neal. She is here to celebrate 2 Lessons to Live By, part of her Lynn Learns Lessons series. Before we invite Traci into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Our Lunar New Year, a beautiful book by Yobi Q. No matter where you live, the reality is that our country is unique because we have so many people of different cultures and languages represented. When we are celebrating so many holidays this holiday season, why not teach your children about a very unique holiday celebrated by tens of millions of people around the world, the Lunar New Year? Yobi Q, the creator of the Asian Holiday series, wrote a picture book about how Asian communities celebrate the Lunar New Year and the similarities and differences those communities share. It really is a beautiful book. We had a wonderful time speaking to Yobi about that book here on the podcast. We know you'll love it. We know your kids will too. Our Lunar New Year by Yobi Q. Joining us right now from the beautiful state of South Carolina, our guest today is here to celebrate her beautiful book. It's called 2 Lessons to Live By. Please welcome to the show, Traci Neal. Hey, Traci, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm pretty wonderful, too. I'm excited to learn all about 2 Lessons to Live By. Tell us about it, please.
So it's actually a children's book series, and it's called Lynn Learns Lessons. But there are 2 lessons in the story to live by, and it is forgiveness and self-esteem.
Forgiveness and self-esteem, really, really important lessons. I don't often hear people talk about those 2 lessons together. Tell us how you connect both of those.
So I connect both of those through my own personal life experiences. That is exactly why I created this children's series. I had spent 10 years trying to be a certified elementary school teacher, and it never happened. Mind you, my gift and my love has always been writing, and I've loved to write since I was 5 years old, and I'm 32. But I really wanted to please my father. He is a retired high school teacher, same school over 40 years. So I wanted to make him proud, so I kept trying to pursue teaching, even though my true calling and purpose was writing.
You know, I think there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that. You know, we have we have a dream, we have a direction that we think we should be going in, but there's this family tradition or pressure, and it's so hard to be able to break away from that. What was it that gave you the power and the strength to break away and follow your own dreams?
Well, I had actually failed. South Carolina has a teacher's exam that you have to pass in order to be certified, and I kept failing it, and I failed it 10 times. So 10 years, 10 times. And after the 10th time, I finally, had that courage to say, I've had enough. I need to pursue what I really love. Mm-hmm. And so it was actually kind of hard, because when I told my dad I'm not going to take the test again, he was like, you never told me no. So it was hard. I'm a daddy's girl. So I was like, oh, goodness. But he came around. He saw that I was committed to it. And that's what made a huge difference.
You know, I think that that's a great lesson for people, is that, our parents love us. And they may be pushing us in one direction because they think that that's the right thing to do. From their perspective, that's the best way and the safest way and the most secure way. But ultimately, they want us to be happy. And if we're looking at the world with a different set of eyes and a different set of experiences, and we decide, no, the path on the right, that's what you think is best for me, but I think I'm going to go over this kind of rocky path on the left, they're going to want us to be successful.
Yes. And that's where I believe forgiveness comes in. I had to forgive my father and know that he wanted the best for me. And so ultimately I had to want the best for myself, which ties into the self-esteem.
Interesting. So how can we best help our kids develop a great, a really strong self-esteem?
I think being open-minded and encouraging them in the things that they like to do. I tell people I get my gift of writing from my mother, and she actually confirmed to me that I had a gift when I was 14 because I started doing poetry and open mics, and she told me, you can do this. This is good. So having that support system, being that support system for your child, like they just need one person to believe in them, and then everything else becomes easier. And so having my mother tell me that I could do it really made a huge difference. And again, my dad came around because he saw my passion and my drive to keep going after it. And I think from the 10 years, it really built my character. And that's why I value these books so much, because it really taught me lessons and growth development that I needed to be the best writer and be the best role model for children. So it was all a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. I have to give you credit. There's, first off, for going back and having the resiliency to take that test 10 times. And then to have the courage to share that with the world. I mean, you didn't need to tell us here on the podcast that you had failed that test 10 times, but you almost wear it as a kind of badge of courage. And you kind of, as I listen to you, it's kind of like, I flunked that test 10 times. Like there's an achievement there. I did something. How were you able to turn that failure into this real positive?
Well, oftentimes I think that when we go through things that may hurt us and we feel like we can't go on, when we continue, it is a lesson and it is an eye-opening experience, and you learn about yourself. I learned a lot about myself through those 10 years. I learned that I can endure, I can keep going, I can strive and make a difference. And so even in that journey, I'm taking another journey, but it still helped me to be able to be an encouragement to kids. And I think that's what tied into me and my father so much was youth. We both love youth, and so that me being able to use this platform of writing these children's books to inspire youth and be a role model, just like he was in the school system, it's made a huge difference.
Yeah. And I'm sure, too, that he recognizes that in your own way, you are a teacher right now. You're just not in a classroom. You're teaching from the pages of your book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the story that we're going to experience when we read your book.
So in Lynn Learns Lessons, Free to Accept, you're going to experience a time in my life where I was dealing with bullying, but this is going to be in a fairy tale version. So even though it's more targeted to older youth of 3rd through 5th grade, I tell people this is a book that many children can learn from and enjoy. So basically, Lynn has to do chores, and she's going to this lake that she goes to finish her chores, but these animals, which are the bullies, are making fun of her for not being an animal. And so through those experiences, she's coming home crying and she's sad, and there's a main character that is called Wonderful Counselor, and he basically encourages her and reminds her that she is a princess. So the whole concept is the crown is my writing. So I had to accept being a writer, just like Lynn will be accepting her crown later on in the series. So it's just a very wonderful book for young people to be inspired to find their voice and be who they are and love who they are, and others will follow it. You'll be the light.
It's so important to kind of find that, find who you are, find what's going to make you happy. You're really fortunate that you had a mom who encouraged you. And of course you had a dad who also encouraged you. How can we as parents help our kids find that thing that they love, especially when there are so many kids who are distracted by the media and social media and technology, and so their heads are buried into a screen all day long, and they're not taking the time to write poetry or to do athletics or to find something that they're passionate about?
So again, I piggyback off of having an open mind. I'm actually a group mentor for the Columbia Urban League in my state. And I found with youth, you have to be willing to listen to them. So I know for myself as an adult, I don't like feeling lectured. Mm-hmm. Even when I was in college, I could not take, just feel like you're just talking to me. Like I was that person that would doze off and be like, okay, even in the front row, I'm dozing off because you're boring me. I can't talk. I can't express myself. And so I find that when you allow kids to just be able to talk to you and be open and honest about their interests, sometimes you'll be surprised. I actually, this summer, had started a local book tour for my children's series. And I got to do it for a nonprofit, and they had like 9 facilities. And I asked these students their dreams, and they actually shared it with me. And I was so surprised some of the things that they said, doctor, lawyer, educator. And one girl in particular, she told me that she had went through the foster care system, and she wanted to be a humanitarian, and help people. So it was just so beautiful. I think that young people can surprise us if we just are willing to open up and listen to what they have to say.
I love that for a couple of reasons. I love that you took the time to ask the kids what their dreams are. I think that's something we stopped doing with, when our kids are 3 or 4 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? And then we stopped that. We're not going to ask our 16-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? But we can ask our 16 and 17-year-olds, what are your dreams? And I think that's real important. And we've talked about the fact that studies have shown that kids who have dreams, even if they change every week, that those kids tend to be happier. They do better in school. They have a purpose and a direction in their life. Yeah. So that's real important for us to do that. What other, you mentioned that child that had been through the foster system, said that she wanted to be a humanitarian. What was your response to her?
I felt touched, and I told her that that's amazing. We need people who care in the world because there's just so much suffering. And I found in my own business that when I take the time to think of others, I'm blessed. Mm-hmm. I have more of a better life. I feel that I'm helping people. Yeah. And I found that every time when I share my poetry or my books, the look on people's faces and people coming back to me saying that it inspired them to go after their dreams, especially youth. Mm-hmm. When I would go to the facility, some of the younger ones would come up to me afterwards and say, I didn't tell my dream. This is my dream. And I just love that. And to hear them say that, and I say, I believe in your dreams, and the look on their face to just know someone believes in them is just priceless.
That's wonderful. What a wonderful gift you gave those kids. Now, I'm curious, you were telling us that you have this love of poetry. Is it was Lynn Learns Lessons. Was that written in rhyme?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And how was that? Is that the style of writing that you're most comfortable working with?
It is. I've loved rhyme because I love Dr. Seuss, and I know you like Dr. Seuss because I actually read an article about you. So yes, I love Dr. Seuss, and I just felt inspired by him. And I'm personal, so with Dr. Seuss book, my favorite is "Oh, the Places You'll Go." And before I met my husband, I had actually been in another relationship, and this male, he passed away from a brain injury, and he was young. So I was in like a very sad place. And so through that book, I felt inspired, and just the power of words, it just inspired me that I'm going to write children's books too. I'm going to be that for someone else, for a child, for an adult. So
wow, that's wonderful. Yes, Dr. Seuss. He's taken a beating a little bit in the press lately, but I think it's hard to kind of and judge people who lived many decades ago on how our way of thinking has evolved. And I think it's really valid to sit down and go, these illustrations today kind of insensitive, and how would we, talk to kids about, what would be a better way to illustrate that without, possibly hurting somebody's feelings. But, I think we're too quick to judge and not quick enough to forgive, as, we were talking about earlier. Something that's hard for a lot of people is this idea of forgiveness, because their hurt has, was so great. And how would you help somebody learn that gift of forgiveness? What can we do to be more forgiving of others and of ourselves? Because I think a lot of times we get angry and we can't forgive ourselves.
So I describe forgiveness as putting on new clothes. So when you want to put on forgiveness, sometimes it's going to feel like it doesn't fit you. It doesn't fit you yet because you're weighed down by this bag of emotion. You know how some people say emotional baggage. Well, there's a weight that we carry. When we're hurt, we're going through something, or we're sad or mad, whatever the emotion, and it gets heavier and heavier. The more that you focus on that emotion, it gets bigger, and then you're weighed down. So I found, and it ties into self-esteem, that you have to find your happy place. Everybody's happy place might be different. My happy place is writing. When I write, it's a release. So for me, when I was being bullied, I was bullied in middle school, and it was like a really hard time for me. Poetry was my voice to be seen, to be heard, and to be known. And so with that, I could release all of my emotions through my poetry. But to somebody, it might be cooking, it might be yoga, whatever it is. That's your outlet to release that pain, that frustration, that anger. And that is what is going to help you. And you have to focus on that, because oftentimes we use the emotions that are bottled up inside as our focus, instead of transferring or moving that focus away to something positive. And that's what I try to do in my own life, is that I have to focus on the positive, because you can't see positive in the negative. But if you're always constantly focusing on the negative, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. I like that advice. When you're hurting, when you're feeling weighed down by all that baggage, to go and do something that makes you happy. Yeah. So many of us just kind of wallow and let ourselves be smothered by that baggage. And when we can, sometimes all we need to do is to get up and cook us some pancakes.
That's true.
You mentioned that you were bullied in middle school, which is a horrible thing to go through, but it's something a lot of us go through. But you also shared that I think it was at 14 you got up and did a live poetry reading. Am I remembering that right?
Yes, my mother actually took me to my first poetry reading at the South Carolina Book Festival at the time, and I was the youngest person in there, and everyone was reading off a paper. Mind you, I had my folder of poems, and my mother was encouraging me, you should go up there and read a poem. I didn't read a poem. I went up there without any paper and I did a poem. And that is when she confirmed to me, you have a gift. You need to keep going with it. So.
Awesome. Well, that must have been incredibly difficult, but what a milestone to be, I don't know if you were being bullied at 14, but it was right around that time. And you still found the strength and courage to get up there in front of all those people and do something that a lot of people say is the most frightening thing in the world, speaking in public. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you remember that poem that you recited that day?
I do.
Could you share it with us?
Oh, goodness, he did put me on the spot. It is called Identity. I am weak, yet I am strong. Sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong. When I cry, it's like the ocean moving because of wind. Through all of life's journeys, I realize God is my true friend. There is only one me. Let not your eyes be deceived. Know who you are. Identity. Because we don't understand, we try to change. Confused and angry, we don't know who's to blame. There are feelings of hurt deep inside. When life's problems come your way, you try to hide. There's only one me. Let not your eyes be deceived. Know who you are. Identity. When others try to put you down, don't give in and wear a frown. The time is coming when you shall stand and know nothing is impossible because you can. There is only one me. Let not your eyes be deceived. Know who you are. Identity.
That was amazing. And I am here letting you folks know that was not prearranged. I didn't give Traci any heads up. And as far as I know, she doesn't have a teleprompter in front of her. That was right.
No, I didn't. That was off head.
Well, that was wonderful, and I think that's a great advertisement and encouragement for folks to check out Lynn Learns Lessons, that beautiful poem that you read, that you created when you were a young teenager, and now you've brought that experience and those talents to create Lynn Learns Lessons. Please tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about your great books.
Yes. I tell people my website is my one-stop shop. You will learn about me, everything you need to know, the publications I've done, the interviews, everything. And that is Traci, Traci, Neal, Neal, speakerpoet.com.
We've had a wonderful time speaking to the author and the poet, the author of Lynn Learns Lessons, Traci Neal. Hey, Traci, thanks so very much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We have two great guests coming to you, the author and illustrator of Mission Control, The Big Feelings Adventure, Nan Arkwright and Joe Bauman. They'll be here letting us know about their book, letting us know how they came together. It's a really fun story. You don't want to miss it. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to help you tell the world all about it. Being an author is really, really tough. And one of the things most authors don't understand is that when they finish writing their book, their work is just beginning. That's right, because as the author of your children's book, whether it's published by a big publishing house or if it's something that you are publishing independently, once that book is printed, you've become the CEO of your children's book, and it's up to you to get it into bookstores, let the world know all about it, and it can be really tough. There are literally thousands of books published every single month. We can help you. There are so many ways we can help you celebrate your book. You can be a guest here on the podcast. You can submit your book to our Certified Great Read panel, and you can also take part in our monthly promotions program, and we can let the world know about your book through commercials here on the podcast, through messages to our 50 to 55,000 plus social media followers, and also have your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. You can learn all about those opportunities by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to whatever service that you are interested in. I'd like to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Let's start by thanking our guest, Traci Neal. Please check out 2 Lessons to Live by, part of her Lynn Learns Lessons series. Also want to thank our sponsor, Yo Be Cute. Be sure to check out our Lunar New Year. Fantastic children's book. We absolutely love it. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Michael Murphy, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.